Welcome. We're tracking major, ongoing developments in Portland, Oregon, which has once again become the focal point of a national conflict between federal authority and organized street protest. Anti-fascist groups are actively organizing large-scale demonstrations right now at the local Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or IC, facility. Flyers are circulating, explicitly urging people to gather to rally against federal orders and the decision to deploy military-style forces to the city. The president has been unequivocal about his intentions, stating that federal troops are being sent to protect these IC facilities against what he terms violent rioters. In a strongly worded public statement, he wrote, "At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security, I'm directing Secretary of War to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our IC facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I'm also authorizing full force, if necessary." This order has been met with immediate and strong condemnation from Oregon's Democratic leadership. Critics of the deployment point to everyday scenes of life in Portland. People simply going about their business, playing sports, and enjoying the city, arguing that the president's description of a war-ravaged environment is a gross and irresponsible exaggeration. They are publicly framing this deployment as a gross abuse of power, the unrequested introduction of military forces into a civilian city. They insist that local authorities are fully capable of managing their own public safety. However, the reality on the ground is that demonstrations against immigration enforcement have, at times, become destructive and violent. Federal data shows a clear rise in assaults against ICE agents across the country. Democratic lawmakers are convinced that the addition of more federal troops will only serve to escalate the situation. Their stated concern is that the deployment is intended to instill fear and chaos and riots through authoritarian control. They are urging local residents not to engage, saying, "Let's not take the bait." Despite the local pleas, the fact remains that more large protests are scheduled outside the facility. This creates an intense political contrast. On one side, local leaders claim the federal presence will cause conflict where none currently exists, an argument often made by city officials who resist federal intervention, even when widespread property damage occurs. The opposing view is rooted in a call for law and order. For the administration, this deployment is a necessary, targeted measure. Federal officials stress that the IC facilities and personnel are under attack, with reports indicating some protesters are armed. They argue that local law enforcement is not taking adequate action to protect these federal agents. Ultimately, this struggle is about who retains control of the city streets. For those who support the deployment, this is a clear move to prevent anarchy and chaos that they believe local authorities have permitted to grow unchecked. The evidence of violence is hard to ignore. We see pictures of incidents that are far beyond peaceful protest, including reports of officers being cut and a protester throwing a large knife at an agent. Federal officials maintain that officers require additional protection. A former senior official echoed the president's guarantee, assuring agents, "We will make sure you have the protection you need and deserve." The hope is that all citizens, regardless of their political views, would agree that these law enforcement agents should be safe while carrying out their duties. The federal side argues that standing by while violence occurs is unacceptable. "We've foreshadowed there's violence and attacks, and we're not going to put up with that. This is the United States of America. We're going to protect Americans, and we're going to protect our law enforcement." This is the forceful message being delivered. The administration views this as a direct challenge to an organization, Antifa, that they claim has become accustomed to operating without consequence. This troop deployment signals a definitive change in that tolerance.